but people get into relationships and they know that the person that they're with, something just ain't quite right. Like they can't figure out what it is, but you know, like there's an absence of peace. And to me, that tells me that you're not with your soulmate. Because no matter what, like me and Devin have been through hell and back. We've also, you know, upset each other and did like terrible things. However, our spirit knows that we are aligned and we always will be until Christ takes us home, right? Yeah. And so there is no doubt in my mind, even when he does annoy me or I annoy him, right? Like, that is the person that God has created for me. And so there's no doubt in my mind that I know that Christ wants me to be with this man, no matter what.
Exactly. So welcome to another episode of Kickin' with JB. I'm very, very excited for this episode. We have the beautiful couple. Y'all can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, you know, I'm Devin.
Yes.
I'm Anaïs.
Man, and
this is my beautiful wife.
Oh my gosh.
So first off, how old are y'all? Let's get right into it.
I'm 24.
I'm 25.
And y'all are married.
Yeah,
yes,
we've been married for 3 years.
Y'all got married on purpose?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So y'all been married for 3 years. You're 24. You said 25?
Yeah.
Got you a young one, huh? Smart.
There's only like 4 months difference between us.
Smart. But nah, so marriage that young. How did you know? How did let's go all the way back. How did y'all meet?
We met at school. We went to North Park University, and I guess I'll tell the story. We was in they put us in this Facebook chat or this Facebook group for all the incoming new members that year.
Yeah, and
everybody was posting their schedule or was something they was posting, and she posted her schedule, and her name is Anaïs, right, which is French. Yeah. And I'd never seen the I like with the 2 dots at the top. And so I'm like, how do you even pronounce that? That was the first thing I ever said to her. I just inboxed her. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was dating somebody. So it was never, it was never like that. Don't even do that.
I'm dead.
But so I just messaged her, bro. And I was like, you know, how do you pronounce your name? And she told me it was Anaïs without the T. And so from there, we was just talking, and I think I had a class with her that year.
Yeah, we had one class together.
And that's your only class. She graduated with a 4.0 or a 3.99.
Yeah, and the only A- I ever got was the class I was in, a class with him.
Yes, sir.
I know what you was on.
So I remind him about that all the time.
But anyways, man, so we met. That's how we met. But then when we met at school, like face to face, I was on campus walking to practice. No, we had meetings. We was just walking, and she had ran. She saw me from across the campus.
Don't say run.
She saw me from across the campus and yelled at me and was like, "Devin." So I look, you feel me? I'm with the football team, and I'm just playing. And so I was wearing a Samoan EA, and she thought that I was wearing a towel. So the first thing she ever said to me in person was, "Did you just shower?" And I'm like, yeah, but this ain't no towel, like you know. But that was funny, man.
I'm very blunt.
That's hilarious.
Very blunt.
So y'all got married 20 years old.
At 21.
21.
How would you describe marriage?
Wow. To me, I see it as like looking in a mirror. Like, I know that sounds weird because thankfully, he's a different person than I am. But like, it's like looking in a mirror because you see yourself for the first time, and you don't see the best parts of yourself for the first time. And so, like, I think that, you know, it's just like looking in the mirror, but you see your true self, not how you like perceive yourself to be. So that's how I would describe it.
It's tough. It's tough. It's a commitment, right? They say marriage is a commitment, but you don't actually know how much of a commitment it is till you actually get there. You know, because think about it, right? When stuff gets tough, stuff hits the wall, you can't just walk out. You know what I'm saying? This ain't a relationship where you just be like, all right, yeah, I'm done with this one. This is a marriage, you know what I'm saying? So you work through it, and I think that's the tough part, but that's also the beauty of it, you know? And
I feel like even relationships, for me, are hard. So I can only imagine a marriage, but like you said, I strongly feel that way. Like, it's like looking in the mirror, you don't see your best self, because I feel like in relationships, that's where I learn the most about myself, like through that other person. So, and that's just like you said, you can't just walk out. And I'm always like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm peacing. You know what I'm saying? But I'm learning how to be better and not to always do that. You know what I'm saying? So no, that's just really cool, man. And I can only imagine how much of work it is, because like loving someone is work, yo. Like, and it's like it's a choice. It's not so much like you can't just like, I love you, let's get married, and you know what I'm saying, it's just gonna be, everything's gonna be sweet, right? Because I can imagine that marriage is not sweet, because it's not glorified. Right. I was talking to my Uber driver today about that, because I was telling him about like what we're gonna talk about today, and I'm just saying like it's not very glorified anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's scary. I couldn't imagine, like, why would I want to go into somewhere it's a 50% chance that it's not gonna work, that I'm gonna get a divorce? You know what I'm saying? And that's like, the odds are against marriages, and especially young ones. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's so dope. That's why I really. And then that too, like, even that, just expanding on that, like, it's kind of how you look at it, right? Is it half empty or is it half full? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love marriage. Right. I love my wife. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I'll sit here and I'll tell you face to face, it's tough. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I can recognize that, but you also know and believe, like, one thing that we wouldn't allow people to speak over us, because, you know, words have power. We would not let people say our first year of marriage is tough to us. Yeah. Really? You know what I'm saying? Because you hear about it all the time. Oh, the first year of marriage is tough. It's going to be hard. But we never let that happen. Yeah. We never let that be spoken over us. Because we knew, like, regardless of what the world says, we're not going to live by the world and operate by the world. Yeah. You know? And so we were always going to be like, no, it's going to be our best year. Right. You know? And so just speaking to that, and like, no, man. Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's how you look at it. It is. That is amazing.
It's also, that's actually a false statistic as well. Like, it's not true that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Really? It was a prediction in the 80s that they said by a certain point they felt like it would, but it's actually not true. Oh, wow. And so millennials are actually getting married a little bit later and surviving those marriages. So I got time. Say that again?
So I got time.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
I'm not late to the party. But so that's a made up stat. Yep. So what is the actual? Is it not as high as that? I don't know. I don't know what the actual statistic is. I didn't even know that. That is a made up stat. I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of my job, is to do research, and so I always do research into things, but I don't think it's that high. I think it's all about, just like Devin said, like, it's all about mentality. Yeah. If you go into something thinking that there's an option to leave, you're going to leave. Yeah. But if you go into something and you're like, no, this is it for me, like, this is the end, then you are going to buckle down, get your stuff together, and make sure that, like, it works no matter what. So it's all about mentality at the end of the day. That's what I feel like.
You know what I just thought about? Since you were talking, we didn't tell people that you're from London.
Oh, I mean...
Yeah, it's very... I mean, you can tell, but...
They get it.
Yeah. You know.
Nah, but... So how did y'all know so young, like, that the person is the one? Like, how do you know that? Because I always be thinking, like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Nope. That's the one. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. Yeah. It's hard for me to have a discernment. You know me, I'm always telling Devin, like, where my wife at, yo? I'm out of these streets. I'm trying to find my wife. And then when a girl likes me, I'm like, okay, this is the one. But obviously it's not. So how do you know and discern and be able to know that one person is the one for you, and that you're going to do that?
For me, it was, it had a lot to do with, like, my faith. Like, when Devin, as he said before, you know, we were dating other people prior to us getting together, and we were just friends. Yeah. But I ended my relationship, and then Devin ended ending his relationship as well. And then there was a point after the fact where Devin approached me as if he was like trying to pursue me to like, you know, date or whatever. Yeah. And so I just stopped talking to him. Like I cut him off for 3 days. I prayed, I fasted, because I was like, God, I was at a point in my life. I was like, I was 18, 19 at the time. And I was like, well, it's just going to be me and Jesus until I'm 30 years old. And then when I'm 30, I'm going to find my husband and then it's going to be great. And so when he came along, I was like, no, like this was not in the plan that I had. And so I really had to discern and pray and fast. And I remember like God was very kind of like, I don't want to say mean with me, but like God was just literally like, shut your mouth, basically, for lack of a better term, because he was like, you don't know what I have planned for you and this man, and you're just going to shut off this man because it's not in your like timing or your time frame, and you don't even know what I have planned. So I was like, I had to humble myself and be like, okay, well, you know, maybe I will see what he's about. And we had to have many conversations, but both of us said that we wanted our next relationship to be our last relationship, and so that was it.
For me, it was so there's a lot of different things that happened that was just confirmation. One of those things being, like she said, we said the same prayer. Before I left for school, before I left for college, I prayed to God and I said, God, if the woman that you want me to be with is my wife, make it so. If not, bring me the woman that you want for my wife. Yeah. And that was it. That was my prayer, right? So then the relationship ended up not working out, and I was telling her, we were talking one day, and I was like, you know, I said this prayer, and she was like, I said the same exact prayer. Yeah.
It was a little different. I had prayed that if the guy I was with at the time wasn't who I was supposed to be with, that the relationship would end. And it did. And
so, you know, that was confirmation. You know, for me, our faith was a big part of it, right? So we were able to connect on that faith level. And so with that being the foundation, you know, that was really strong. That was really good for us. Exactly. And so for me, when I knew that she was the one, it's because I prayed about it. And God told me, literally, he told me, start saving up for a ring. I'm like, I'm broke. I ain't got, you know, I'm in college. What you talking about? No money. You know, and so I was obedient with that. Yeah. And then literally, because this was my junior year, and so I was going through the draft stuff too. And so then literally. Tough year. Yeah. Literally, probably like 5 months after that, he was like, okay, go buy a ring. I'm like, I only got a couple $100. Like 5 months. That's what I'm saying. How long have y'all? You said y'all been. Okay, so we've been.
So let's go through the timeline, right? The whole timeline. So like we started dating in 2015. Yeah. January 2015, and that's when we started dating. And then so he, the prayer that he's talking about God telling him to save up for a ring happened October of 2016. So it was roughly then. And then God told him to buy the ring.
That was in January or February.
Yeah, like early spring 2017.
So what is that like? I had it like a year and a half? My birthday. You guys have been dating?
It was about 2 years. 2 years? By the time we got engaged, because we got engaged when I graduated. And so it was about two years and like a few months that we had been dating.
So would you guys say that y'all were equally yoked when y'all met in dating? And do you believe in having to be equally yoked?
I think that's something that happens at marriage.
I disagree. I disagree. So I do think we were equally yoked, and I think that being equally yoked means having a foundational personal relationship with Christ. You know, like we sharpened each other, but we had an individual relationship with Christ that was not dependent on one another. Yeah. And so I think that's to me what it means to be equally yoked, and that's biblical. So there's no getting out of it, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think what I was getting at was we can be equally yoked, right, together, but we truly become one.
Yeah.
At marriage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I think that's what I was getting at, because I would agree with you.
Yeah. Yep.
No, that's amazing, because that's something I definitely deal with all the time, being equally yoked, because obviously I was in a relationship and I was not equally yoked, and she was a lot more spiritual than I was, and I'm still, I would say, like a baby in my faith. You know what I'm saying? I'm still figuring it out, still learning, but I definitely feel like had I been more, like, I guess there spiritually, things would have been a lot different. Yeah. So then that leads me to my next question for y'all. Do y'all believe in soulmates?
I personally do. I don't believe in a soulmate in the traditional like way that we communicate it. Mm-hmm. What I believe is that I truly believe that God created Devin to be my life partner, and that he created me to be his. Mm-hmm. And although I know we could have glorified God with other people, we wouldn't have glorified God in the same way if we chose to be with other people. So I believe that there's a person that God has created specifically for you.
One person. Just one.
One person. I do believe that you can honor God with someone who might not be that one person. Mm-hmm. But I do think there is only one person that your soul, your spirit can align to. Yeah.
Because that was my next question. So if it's one person, what if one person ruins it? What if like somebody messes it up? But like you said you still feel you can glorify God with another person. That's amazing. Do you believe in soulmates?
It's tough. You know, one of the things that our marriage went through was, I was reading in the Bible, and it says in Matthew that you won't marry in heaven. And so I remember I read that in my Bible, and I stopped, like I was praying. I'm like, God, what does this mean? You know, I was meditating on it, and then I just closed the book, and I stood up and I went in the other room where she was at, and I just looked at her and I just started crying. I'm like, because truly, will I know you when I'm in heaven?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, right, does that even matter?
Right.
Because when we're in heaven, right, we'll be glorifying God and worshiping God the whole time. You know? And so I think that was the metaphor Jesus was trying to pull out of that parable, but also it's clear and cut what he's saying. You know? And so to say that I would believe in soulmates is tough. Like, I agree with your perspective, because I believe that too. You know what I'm saying? There's one person out there for you. But will my soul be mated with her like when I'm gone? I don't know. You know, and so I think a lot of people get caught up in the questioning and wanting to know the answers, but you know, one thing that we are fully convinced about is we're okay with dying and not knowing the answers. Because we won't ever know all the answers.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people get caught up in, well, what about this and what if this? You know, but that's God's place to know.
No,
you know?
facts.
I think it's physical as well, like, and I don't mean physical in like a sex sense, but people get into relationships and they know that the person that they're with, something just ain't quite right. Like they can't figure out what it is, but you know, like there's an absence of peace. And to me, that tells me that you're not with your soulmate. Because no matter what, like me and Devin have been through hell and back. We've also, you know, upset each other and did like terrible things. However, our spirit knows that we are aligned, and we always will be until Christ takes us home, right? And so there is no doubt in my mind, even when he does annoy me or I annoy him, right? Like, that is the person that God has created for me. And so there's no doubt in my mind that I know that Christ wants me to be with this man, no matter what.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Wow. So then that brings me talking physical. What about soul ties?
That's a very real thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, I can go all day talking about soul ties. I swear. And And that is what I've been praying for consistently, is to be freed from those soul ties, and that those women be restored, that I be restored, because sex is huge, man. Like, it's so hard, and like I was explaining to one of my homegirls today, like it's a covenant. Like, you really like break blood, like, you know what I'm saying? You become one with that person, and it's hard. That's why, like, in a room full of 1,000 women walk in, but one woman that walked in that I slept with, that I've been with physically, it's a different feeling than those other 1,000 girls in that same room. You know what I'm saying? So, what did y'all take on soul ties?
They're definitely a real thing, and I think that everything you just said, I think everyone needs to do. Like, everyone needs to pray for freedom for themselves and for the freedom of the people that they've been tied to in that way as well. I think that has a huge part in my personal decision to become celibate. I was celibate before we got in a relationship. And so part of the reason why was because of soul ties, because I personally believe that, like, as a wife, I owe it to my husband to give him everything, right? And so that's why I think our society doesn't value virginity or value waiting until you can give the person you're supposed to be with your everything.
And that's why, like, so many people just stick together, right? Like, if you're not, people sometimes are not even supposed to be together, but they have been connected intimately in that way. So when stuff gets tough and they know they should not be together, they're just like, well, it's fine, you know? And it's just like, that's how much power that holds.
Exactly.
And that's why the original meaning, right, and the original intent that God had purpose for was to be celibate until that moment with your husband or your wife, your spouse. But, you know, it's tough, but it's also something that can be overcome, right? Like you said, praying for breaking the break free from that,
trying to get them demons off me.
And so, yeah, man, it's definitely doable, and it's definitely a real thing.
I think pertaining to marriage, though, you know, that's something I think both of us would be lying if we said that unfortunately, that's not something that we have brought into the marriage, right? Like, the fact that, you know, we weren't virgins when we got married has come with complications in terms of, like, us being intimate with one another and stuff like that. And so that's why I think it's so important to acknowledge sin for what it is, and also to, like, speak against it, so that when you are coming and becoming one with someone, like, it's not, you can freely become one with that person without having to worry about other things.
No, facts. And I feel like, personally, that's so huge that you guys will be open about that, and that's amazing. And just like we said, it's definitely a real thing, and I don't know why. In my case, it feels like it's just such a harder bond. Like, I really feel connected to some of those women. You know what I'm saying? It's really hard for me to break free, and it really affects my relationships right now to today. And I've been, like, binge watching this one pastor. His name's Andy Stanley, I think, and I've just been watching, like, his relationship little series or whatever. And he was just saying, like society glorifies, you know, do whatever, have sex with whoever, you know, go crazy, do your thing. You know what I'm saying? Or like that, like, you have to, like, test it out to see, like, if it's cool or not. But then he had such a dope, like, concept saying, like, nah, you're not supposed to. Like, you don't need to test it out. Like, I'm like, you're gonna know what to do when you get to the bedroom. You know what I'm saying, with your wife. Like, it's not very hard. You know what I'm saying? It's not rocket science. And the only thing what takes away from it is having those different experiences with those different people, because now it's like you're comparing. You know what I'm saying? You're comparing what Shorty did here, what he did there. You know what I'm saying? That's been my hardest thing, is just trying to break free from that, from that, like, comparison, and just really be by myself, because it's hard. And me personally, that's how I feel loved at times. You know what I'm saying? That physical act, that is how I feel loved, and that is definitely something I'm trying to pray through and grow from. Also like one of my pastors in college had a really dope analogy about like glue. Like when you constantly have sex with those people, it's like it's kind of you're coming unstuck, and now you're kind of numb. You know what I'm saying? And now that moment with your wife or with your husband on wedding night isn't as special than what it could have been. You know what I'm saying? So I've always tried to be celibate, and I do my best, do the best I can. But no. So but that's my goal, man. And I told myself, because he Andy Stanley challenged me in one of his sermons to take a year and renew your mind. Like, no relationships. Like, even like something you think is going to become a relationship, like, let it go. And he's like, what's going to happen in 3 months? You're going to find the woman of your dreams. You're going to find your wife. You know what I'm saying? But are you going to be consistent in it? Are you going to still stick with like that agreement that I made with God to take that year off? You know what I'm saying? And continue to renew my mind. And that's really what I'm focused on this year, is renewing my mind, because for so long I allowed relationships to be my like the top of my life. You know, I talk to y'all damn near almost counsel me through a relationship. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, to take a year off and renew my mind, man. That's why I like the marriage concept to me is wild. Because one, I can't keep a relationship, but that's why I like just to see that y'all like just how y'all look at each other is just so fire, yo, and just being so young and being able to do it and just stick together, just that stick togetherness. I feel like that's what I struggle with a lot, is the stick togetherness. Because like I was saying, like when something gets bad in my relationship, I'll be peace. Like I'll be ready to dip. But you can't do that in marriage. You know what I'm saying? And I know that there was probably times in y'all relationship where you was like, yo, forget this, and you was like, forget him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But y'all stuck to it, and look at the. You know what I'm saying? And look what y'all got now. But that's just, honestly, that's just so far, yo. And I'm so happy for y'all. But so that leads me to my next question.
To chime in on that, though, it's important to know that like marriage isn't a destination. You know, marriage is a starting line. Yeah. And so, you know, a lot of people think you have to be a finished product, or you have to be fully perfect, and then I'll be married, right? And that's when you start to look at it as a destination, as an end goal. But marriage is the start of the rest of your, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when we got married at 21, that wasn't it for us. Yeah. We're 24, and then 3 years in, we still got a long way to go. You know what I'm saying? And so you're going to grow with this person. You're going to achieve goals and maybe fail at some things. And you know what I'm saying? A lot of different things in between with that. Yeah. And so to look at it as a destination, that's where a lot of people get that hope. And then when stuff gets tough, they like, oh.
Like, once I get married, I'm going to be good.
Right.
Yeah. Once I find my wife, that's when I'm going to build my legacy. And I really, you kind of just pressed me when you said that, because I am literally that person. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get my mind together. I'm going to grow. I'm going to be better. You know what I'm saying? Before I get into another relationship. So it's kind of, I didn't even realize that I'm looking at it like a destination. Because I definitely want to be like, I want to be like fully grown. I want to be healthy. I want to, you know what I'm saying? I want to know how to love myself properly before I can go love somebody else.
That's what I can always tell you all the time, man. See, now we're going into what we talk about, but like, bro, you're doing fine. Man.
I know, but I always feel like I'm below the totem pole. Even earlier, I'm like, yo, so I still got time, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm 25, about to be 26. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, y'all was 21, so I'm kind of late, but you know what I'm saying? But so. I never realized that I was looking at marriage as a destination, but I really like just the fact of relationships, like you said, you figure out so much about yourself. I think in my relationship, I've grown so much. Like, I've learned so much about myself and others just being in that relationship. You know what I'm saying? So, man, what advice for someone obviously like myself and others out there seeking marriage? Like, what advice would y'all give to people? Because I feel like y'all always hearing from God. Me personally, I don't be hearing that little voice. You know what I'm saying? So what advice can you give me, or just any person out there that obviously wants marriage and seeking marriage in a society that doesn't really glorify marriage and just kind of glorifies, you know, being a city boy?
First of all, like, I want to start off by saying I feel like more people hear God. I think our difference is we listen to him and we obey straight away. And so I think that, you know, the Bible's pretty clear about God speaks to us in many different ways. And so even though God might say something outright to you at one point in time, he might use someone else to speak for you another point in time, whatever. Like, God is always talking. We just have to be willing to listen, but then also obey what he's saying. But in terms of preparing for marriage, I don't know, I get this question a lot, especially from single women, and maybe it's just because I'm annoying, but I'm like, my go-to response is don't. Like, stop trying to, because you're treating it like a destination again, right? Like, you're treating it like you're going on vacation or something and you need to get ready. Like, you need to pack all this stuff and get ready for it. I think the only thing that you can do is truly be who Christ has called you to be in this season, and know that there will be another season where you will have to be who Christ has called you to be with someone else. But on a very practical level, you know, because that's what people look for, I would say the biggest areas that I always tell people to focus on is finances, soul ties, which we've spoken about already, and really those are the two biggest things, and like any underlying trauma that you think you might have.
That part.
So like if you know, went through stuff when you was younger, or you just have some insecurities that you need to deal with, not that they need to be dealt with, but you do need to be able to look at your spouse and say, hey, like, this is what I'm working through. And it's hard to do that if you don't know.
So with that, you know, because I would say as well, right, be prepared for those tough things, right?
Yeah.
Finances, intimacy, you know, living together. You know, you just got to understand what you're getting yourself into.
That was a big adjustment for me. So, like, obviously, we didn't have sex before we got married. We also didn't live together before we got married. And I had never lived with a boy before in my life. And so, like, I remember after we got married one day, I was like, oh, you're still here? I was so confused.
That's fine.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're just here all the time. And so, you know, it's definitely an adjustment. But I think our mindset is so different to where we approach life as like, dang, we get to do this together. Like, we always have, amongst us, we have like all these firsts, like the first time we got to do this together, or the first time we tried these things. And so that's kind of how we see marriage. Like, the first time we get to live together, buy a house, first argument, you know, like all of it. So, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, just get used to being vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's a big one, because like she said, right?
It's funny watching his face because he looks so uncomfortable, and I'm like, honey, get used to it.
Get used to being vulnerable, because you got to have conversations, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is just you prep for what's to come, right? And so get used to being vulnerable. Yeah. Understand what you're getting yourself into, right? And just work on yourself, you know?
Facts.
And like I said to you doing that, right? And so people lose sight of I'm going to start reading my Bible more consistently, or I'm going to work on these past traumas. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's stuff that, best believe, when the time comes, your spouse is doing those same things, hopefully.
Yeah.
And even if they ain't, be prepared for that, right?
Yeah.
And so understand, that's what I'm saying, understand marriage, is understand that y'all are going to work together.
Yeah.
This is a team dynamic.
Okay.
And you have to take on the race together.
Exactly.
You know?
No, so then what is your take? Because I hear this a lot. It's like, you got to be a husband before you're a husband, or you got to be a wife before you're a wife. Like, you got to be like doing husband-like activities, like you can't be, you know what I'm saying? So what do y'all think about that?
That honestly just makes me sick, because how do you be something that you're not? Like, I think that's the greatest thing about marriage, is that you get to learn how to be those things together. You know, like, I am not the wife that I was 3 years ago, and Devin's not the husband he was 3 years ago. Like, we're constantly learning and evolving and unlearning some things and stamping on, you know, expectations that we had of ourselves or of each other. And that's how you grow. Like, you can't be something that you have no experience of being before you actually go through it.
Exactly.
That takes me back to what I was saying earlier. Like, people try to look for the play-by-play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They try to look for
what I need to do
step-by-step.
Yeah.
But, because you can definitely understand, like, you know, you won't understand what being a husband is like until you're a husband. Right? I get that. But there's things that you can do, right? Learn how to lead yourself spiritually so that you can lead your wife. Yeah. Right? And there's things that you can do that preps you for it. But again, right, you can't look at it in the way that, well, I haven't done this, so I'm not married, or so I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
You know, and so you just really got to understand what you're getting yourself into. Right? And it's not as glamorous. Every marriage looks different.
It
know,
does.
Every relationship, before you even start marriage and the dating stages, before you even start dating, you know, relationships all look different.
Yeah.
And if you try to make it to where it's like somebody else's, it may not work out.
That's actually,
you have to make it your own.
Yeah, we used to share a lot more about our relationship than we currently do, and part of the reasons is because of what Devin just said. Like, I definitely notice a lot of people would compare their relationship to ours, and I'm like, everything looks good on social media, but you are comparing yourself with the trials, you know, the darts that the enemy is throwing at us every day, like the difficult things that we have to overcome, the flesh that we have to die to. Like, you're comparing yourself to all of that, and some of that, you know, is not your portion. So, yeah, that's why I think we're super careful. I'm more careful about not oversharing our relationship, not because, you know, I know it will bring glory to God, but people are not everyone's at a place in their faith where they can't compare their experience to someone else's experience. And I think that often leads to a lot of pain and destruction more than it leads to, like, pushing people closer to Christ.
So, like, then I got a question. How do you date properly? Like right now, like, how would I date someone properly and like dating for real intention and not just, you know what I'm saying? Or knowing that, like, this is actually somebody I could take seriously, somebody I can actually be a life partner with. Like,
I think, again,
how do I discern that?
Everything is going to look different and everything's organic. And so allow it to be, you know? And so find your niche within that relationship. Yeah. And so, you know, if you want, like, practical things, right, I personally would say to establish a foundation, right, with Christ at the center. That was the main important thing that I knew I needed, and how our relationship was founded. You know, that was one of the first things that we were able to connect with, was our faith. Yeah. And so being able to find that connection, and so that looked like honoring God with our bodies, right? Like we talked about before, and really, like, just praising God in all that you do. Yeah. You know? And so we were able to have fun with each other, you know, and so have fun, right? Understand what that looks like, but how that looks like to also honor God with. And so it's just a lot of different things.
I think it just depends on what God tells you to do, honestly. Like, that's, you know, how it looked for us is different for how it may look for other people. Some people choose not to even kiss their spouse before they get married.
I've seen that, yeah.
So it really depends on you and your relationship with Christ and how God is leading you. But I would say, I feel like a lot of people are scared to talk about commitment up front. And I would say, like, really practically, I don't think there's anything wrong, even before dating someone, being like, okay, what are you about? You know, like we had many, I mean, granted we were friends first, and so that dynamic was a little bit different, but like we had very deep, specific conversations about our expectations for a relationship, for a spouse. And I think it was just helpful overall because, you know, before we started dating, like both of us knew, okay, like this person wants someone that they can be with for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, exactly. So. Wow. No, that's amazing. So then, like, to wrap it up, what are y'all's, like, goals going forward now? Y'all 3 years into marriage, you know, you're 12 years old. I'm fine, but y'all are still very young. So what's your goals now?
I think a big one for me personally, marriage-wise, is my husband living out like his dreams and what he's been called to be. I think awesome. This is like an unspoken element of marriage in that you have two individuals who have hopes and aspirations, right? And so we talk more about the sacrifices in marriage than we talk about actually like pushing each other to achieve their goals and, you know, what they want to do in life. And so I've been on a journey with him and playing professional football for the past 3 years, and it hasn't been easy. And I would actually argue, this is like a little side note, but I think that God requires a special type of woman for a football player. And I do not say that lightly at all. But like, honestly, most of these girls, you know, they think, oh, I just got to look good. Oh, I got to be a trophy wife. That's and sweet, yeah. That is not what being a football player's wife is about, especially when you see the negative or difficult parts of professional sports. And I think the reason why so many of those marriages don't work is because they are not with the right person in the first place. Like, you need to be with someone who understands that this is more than money, that this is very hard, not just physically on the body, but mentally as well, and that I need to be prepared to be a helpmate to both of those things. Like, I don't just need to help my husband physically if he has like aches and pains after playing or practicing or whatever, but also I need to be strong for my husband when he gets cut from a team. I need to be strong for my husband when, you know, he doesn't have a job and there is an income coming in, you know, like it's more than just, oh, I got to look nice and, you know, show up to games and have his last name on my back. Like, it's a lot more than that. So I do think that it takes a special type of woman to be married to a professional athlete, personally. Yeah, 100%. But, yeah, that's my goal.
As the spiritual leader of the household, well, first of all, let me say, I love you for that. So, but from the standpoint of leadership, I set daily goals for our marriage. You know, one of those goals, and like I said, practically speaking, like one of those is I want to make her laugh at least once a day. Yeah. Right? Give her a kiss at least once a day. Yeah. You know, and tell her that she's beautiful every single day. Exactly. Right? And those are just little goals, right? And so then you look at long term, you know, we obviously have a goal to make it to the end of our lives, you know what I'm saying? Like, we want to look at it, you know, we want to be married. We always picture in our head to be able to look at each other and be like, dang, we've been doing this for 50 years, you know, like, you know, that like type stuff. But you also have goals, like she said, individually, right? And so you have goals individually, but it also is important to have those collective goals, right? And that's what I really want to speak to, is speaking to those collective goals. Yeah,
there's a lot we want to do together as well. Facts. But yeah.
So, kids. We're gonna have a little Devin Anaïs popping up around here. I mean, y'all got a beautiful home, as y'all can kind of see. You see that cross right there. Let's tell a special story about that cross for the people who are watching.
So the cross, we got married in front of that cross. We actually made the cross ourselves. We went to Home Depot and we bought a 10-foot thing of wood and spray paint, and we made it ourselves because we wanted to. Right. We've moved across the country with it. Like it's been part
in apartments. Yeah. It's been in
this house.
That's that legitimate term of pick up your cross.
Right, right, definitely. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Now kids, right? Yeah.
So
going back to
there we go.
Understand what you're getting yourself into, right?
Yeah. So do you know what this is a very interesting topic for us, because this is why we speak about expectations and stuff like that. Last year was a very terrible year for us. Like literally every single month was something new for us, I feel like. And January really started that off. And so we have been trying for kids for a long time. And so after you get to a certain point, even though we're young or whatever, doctors are like, oh, well, maybe you should go get tested to see if everything's okay and stuff like that. So we've gone through all of that process, and doctors came back to us last January and told us, that there's some things that we're going to have to work through. And that was a very surreal moment in our marriage when the doctors said that, this might be very difficult. There were some conversations that happened that people don't make it past those conversations.
Wow.
And so I'm personally grateful for it, because I feel like we're a lot stronger. But we really had to question ourselves and say, okay, like if we never have kids, would we still want to be together?
Yeah.
Like if we never have kids, will we still serve our purpose in marriage for Christ? And we came to the conclusion that yes, we would.
And you think about it, right? You was asking earlier, what does it look like to date, or how do you prepare for marriage? You can't prepare for that.
You can't.
No,
we did not expect that.
You don't think that's not a step by step that somebody gives you, like before marriage. Be prepared for this, And again, you got to understand what you're getting yourself into, because, like she said, that's stuff people don't make it past.
Yeah.
And so, man, to answer your question. In due time.
Due time.
I mean, it's coming. We definitely believe that the Lord has told us that we will have kids that come from us biologically instead of adoption. Yeah, so
sure. No, that's dope, man. And this has been such a healing episode. I know, especially for me. We have these conversations all the time, but I really needed to hear that, and I appreciate y'all so much, man. And just want to say thank you, and thank you for coming to the podcast, man. Thank you for coming kicking it, and I'll be sure to put their information in the bios, and so y'all can go follow and subscribe. Anaïs, I know you got working on a little something. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about that one of these days, coming up. But man, thank you guys. You guys are very inspiring, and I know me personally, I love the gems that you were dropping. You know what I'm saying? Those are definitely something that I'm going to use myself. And I hope and pray that it'll help somebody else who was listening or watching today. So make sure y'all like and subscribe and leave a review. But appreciate y'all coming, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you.